Hi, I'm John Calarco, Holistic Health and Performance Coach. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to do an exercise that you should master first before training the single leg RDL so you can do it correctly. Unleash your power, achieve your potential. If you have weak glutes, hamstrings, core muscles, weak feet, poor balance, or if your spine or pelvis is misaligned, maybe your spine is excessively rounded forward in the chest area, that's called the thoracic spine, or the neck is excessively tilted forward into a forward head posture, or if your pelvis is excessively tilted forward and that's causing excessive extension in the lower spine, or if the pelvis is even excessively tilted backwards and that's causing rounding in the lower spine, then this single leg dowel hip hinge progression is going to be a great exercise for you because it's going to help you build the fundamental levels of stability and strength in your feet, lower legs, glutes, hamstrings, hips, and core, which is also going to help you improve and align your spine and pelvis into more of a neutral position, which is ideal for loading. Of course, that's going to help you prevent injury in the feet and ankles, hips, and lower back. And then this is going to lay the foundation for you to perform the single leg RDL exercise weighted with perfect technique. Now, the single leg dowel hip hinge, just as the name says, is going to train the hip hinge movement pattern at a high level. The hip hinge is one of the 7 fundamental human movement patterns and really is the foundational lower body human movement pattern. The other 2 patterns are squatting and lunging. This is also, as I mentioned, going to lay a perfect foundation for you to progress into doing those weighted single leg RDLs and even single leg deadlifts with perfect technique, so you don't have to think so much about your technique doing those more challenging variations of the movement. You just automatically condition the proper habits and alignment of your body and the proper movement pattern by mastering this exercise first. So I showed you quite a few exercises in previous videos that would allow you to lay a fundamental level of mobility and stability to be able to perform this exercise more easily and progress appropriately. Some of those exercises were the band-assisted hamstring stretch, the leg lowering exercise, the half kneeling hip flexor stretch, the half kneeling payloft press, the glute bridge variations, and then more recently, about a couple weeks ago, I showed you how to do the double leg hip hinge variation of this exercise, which is really what you should master before you do this one. So if you haven't taken a look at those videos, if you haven't mastered those exercises yet, that's okay. Watch through this full video, and then if you feel like you don't have that baseline level of mobility and stability, go back and do those exercises, and when you come back here, it'll be much easier to do this one. I'll link those videos here on the video for you. Now, the primary muscles we'll be targeting in the single leg dowel hip hinge are going to be the glutes and hamstrings as they eccentrically control our movement back into hip flexion, okay, and come into a lengthened position. And then as you concentrically come forward and extend the hip, of course, we're going to be challenging, and that movement is primarily going to be done by the glutes and the hamstrings. Then the feet, lower legs, and core stabilizers are going to be working hard here to maintain a perfect neutral spine position and to maintain foot stability as we're going to be on one leg. So to set up for that single leg dowel hip hinge exercise, you're going to need a dowel or a broomstick or a similar object that we can place along the spine. Then we're going to take the dowel in contact with the back of the head, the middle of the upper back, and the sacrum right above the tailbone here. Take your top hand in line with the curve of the neck. Take your bottom hand in line with the curve of the lower spine, and make sure that if you're working your right leg, like I am in this case, that your right hand is in the bottom position. That is going to matter here as we go onto one leg. That's going to create more of a balanced effect in your body, more of a reciprocal balance as you go through the exercise. Also, make sure that your shoulders are opened up. Make sure they're not closed up. That's going to make it harder to maintain the dowel. And you are getting some shoulder mobility here as well. So have those shoulders back and down slightly and maintain them in an open position. Then we'll set up the foot position. All right, you're going to set your kneecap pointed directly forward. So whether that's having your foot directly pointed forward or a slight turnout, for me, it's having the foot slightly turned out for me to be in my ideal posture there for my hip to get loaded. All right, once the foot's set, we're going to come onto that single leg stance, press those toes into the ground, heel is firmly planted as well, and then we're ready to initiate the movement. Focus on inhaling and shifting your weight back into that glute and hamstring, driving that top leg heel straight to the wall behind you as well, so that leg is straight. Then stand back to the top position. Exhale as you do and feel that glute squeeze at the top, leg is straight, and we're back to the start position with the body stacked up in a nice tall position. All right, I'll show you a few reps. Inhale, weight shift back, maintain that spine. Exhale, stand to the top. You can tap your toes on the ground in between reps if you want to just reset and make sure you have good control over your balance, or if you want to just stay on one foot the entire time to really challenge your balance here, you can do that as well. So inhale again, weight shift back, just a slight knee bend as you shift those hips back. Stand out through the glute and hamstring and hip, and then you're completed with that single leg dowel hip hinge exercise. So that's how we perform the exercise. You should feel a good stretch in the hamstrings and the glutes as you move into that back position. Of course, you're going to feel the hamstrings and glutes working and getting loaded as we stabilize and control the movement and stand up and perform hip extension, which is what those muscles do. Then also you should feel a significant amount of work in the foot and ankle there and lower leg muscles as they really work to stabilize you in that single leg stance. And then of course you'll feel your abdominals working and your core muscles working to keep that neutral spine and prevent rotation of the body, which is one of the common mistakes that we want to watch out for. Now, there are quite a few common mistakes, as you can imagine, that can happen in this exercise. The first one, of course, is to make sure that we don't lose the spine position. All right, so as you go through, of course, what can happen is we can either round the spine excessively as we go into the position, and so I lose my sacrum contact point above the tailbone, or some people can actually overextend the spine. So as they go back, they can get too extended in the chest or even neck, and see how that brings the dowel off of my mid-back posture. All right, then lastly, of course, make sure that you're not getting into a forward head posture and losing the contact point at the top on the back of the head. So that's probably the biggest mistake that we, of course, want to avoid here. Another big mistake that we want to avoid is getting rotation through the pelvis, okay? So as we go through the exercise, what your core is really working here is fighting against these rotational forces as you go into the position. So we don't want to allow the body to rotate open like that. I'll show you one from the front too. Okay, as we go back, we don't want to be rotating in this position. We want to maintain a nice square pelvis to the ground, so we're maintaining that alignment of the pelvis. So do your best there to fight. Think about keeping your back toes pointed directly at the floor. That's often a great cue to help you prevent that rotation. Another mistake we want to avoid is making sure we don't turn this into a squat. So make sure you don't bend that knee excessively, right? We don't want to make this a squat. You could even still keep the dowel contacts and turn it into a squat. So again, just have that slight knee bend. It's maybe about 20 degrees is the ideal knee bend here as we perform that dowel hip hinge. And then one more often overlooked component here that really shouldn't happen much, but sometimes it does for people, is allowing the knee to cave in. So as you go into the exercise, sometimes if you have the wrong foot position, like let's say for me, if my foot is turned on or really straight or even in slightly, for me, it's going to be really hard for me to keep my knee out. I'm almost going to get forced in that position just because I know my own hip anatomy. I need a slight turnout of my hip so I can get into full hip flexion and not feel that driving in of my knee joint, okay? So first thing is to make sure you have the right foot position. If you really need to figure that out and you're not sure, then just take yourself into a little small split stance, ID where your kneecap is, and then move your kneecap directly forward and see where your foot lands. As you can see for me, there's just a slight turnout of my foot there, so that gives me the best position for my knee joint to be loaded. And then I also know when I go back into hip flexion and I go into that full position, my knee is still straight here as well. So I know that's the right position for me. So you have to test that and find the right one for you. If you're too turned in, like if I'm too turned in, I'm going to get forced inward, kind of like this. It's just going to be fighting against my own anatomy. So that's a really important key. Now, let's say you have the right foot position, but you're still finding that knee wants to come in on you. Then what we can do there is we can add a band and we can create a little bit of what's called reactive neuromuscular training. So we can take a band about knee height and take it on just above the knee, or you could place it below, whatever's more comfortable. I'm going to place it above the knee there. And we can have just a little bit of tension on this band, or maybe a lot of tension on the band, if you can handle it, and it can really help you achieve the right position. And then we can do the exercise with this RNT effect. And what this is going to do is it's going to really force you to drive out and use those lateral glute muscles that are really doing a lot of work here in this exercise. Not just that main glute max muscles working hard here, the glute medius and the lateral glute is working hard to stabilize that pelvis, make sure you don't drop the pelvis, and make sure you don't rotate excessively. So again, this is another great addition you can do to the exercise. It's really a variation of the exercise that you can add in to really make sure that you maintain that perfect knee alignment, which should be in line with the hip joint and the knee in line with just about the second toe as you go through the exercise. All right, so that's one of the most beneficial variations that often needs to be used with people when they need to really learn how to fire up those lateral hips properly to maintain proper knee position. Another variation you can do, if you're having any trouble with the shoulder mobility, again, I'd recommend going back and doing, say, the T-spine rotation and some of those shoulder mobility exercises I showed you previously. But if for whatever reason it's just not comfortable for you to be in this position, you could just do this exercise with the dowel on your thighs. You would simply just press the dowel back against your body and keep it in contact with you the whole time to activate your lat muscles, which are going to help you stabilize and maintain your spine and thoracic spine specifically position. And then you can do the same exact thing here, all right, just keeping the dowel in contact with you. So this is another good variation and way you can do the exercise. But again, we're not going to have that self-limiting benefit of having the dowel on those three contact points, which is going to force us to maintain more of a perfect neutral spine position. So you're going to have to be more self-conscious about where your spine position is if you're doing it in that way. And as I mentioned, these exercises here are going to lay that foundation for you to be able to perform that variation of course, doing the single leg RDL exercise loaded. So whether that's with 2 dumbbells, and you're going back into that same exact position and coming out, maybe that's with 1 dumbbell in the opposite hand, which is usually where I like to start clients out training that exercise with that opposite contralateral loading pattern, which creates a nice cross body effect training on our core and our hip. And then you can even do it with the dumbbell on the same side, which creates even a little bit more of an asymmetrical challenge there as you have to fight against rotation a little bit more as your body is fighting you to turn you and do that to you. All right, so that's something that I'll cover in detail in a future video. We'll really go over the details of how to do the loaded version of the single leg RDL exercise with dumbbells, with barbells. So we'll cover all that. But if we cover that in this video, we're going to be here for a long time. So on this video, I really wanted to focus on just that single leg dowel hip hinge for you, which is going to turn into your RDL. It's going to make it easy to perform that exercise, and we'll get the most out of it because we can focus on loading it, and the movement pattern is going to be automatic and subconscious for us by mastering this one. All right, so in terms of how many sets and reps you should do on the single leg dowel hip hinge RDL exercise, really about 2 to 3 sets of anywhere from 10 to 12 reps I find is sufficient. If you can work up to doing 3 sets of 12 repetitions on this exercise, with just the dowel, just body weight on both sides, it's going to be a really great achievement for you, a great baseline level of fundamental stability and strength that will really allow you to carry over and not just perform better in the single leg RDL, but just have a better strength and endurance ability in your feet and ankles, which is often undertrained. And just one more quick thing on that, if you're having really a lot of trouble with the feet and ankles on this and they're really fatiguing out on you, it may be helpful to just add in some single leg balance work, just holding 60 seconds, looking straight ahead. You could go eyes closed, 60 seconds and build up to that. That's another kind of supplement you can add to this exercise if you're finding the foot and ankle challenge here is really holding you back. So either way, doing this exercise, 3 sets of 12 reps or so on that baseline is going to train the feet and ankles at a high level and really allow you to get the level that I feel you'll need on this exercise to really have it be automatic and subconscious and carry over well to the loaded versions of the exercise. How many times per week? Honestly, this is an exercise you can do every day. It can serve as a mobility drill for you that you can use in your warm-up routine every day after you master it from a training standpoint. So, you really can't do too much of this exercise, but at least 2 or 3 times a week is how much you'll have to work on it to really develop that strength and stability and endurance within the exercise. As I mentioned, the time to perform it would be after your other mobility exercises, like let's say right before doing the loaded versions of a single leg dowel RDL or single leg loaded RDL or even double leg RDL. And then it can be a staple exercise in your program if it's one of the main ways that you're training and developing your hip hinge movement pattern at that time. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button. Let me know in the comments below. Can you do this thing like RDL with perfect technique? And if not, let me know if you're committed to practicing this exercise and mastering it so you can be ready for that next video I have coming your way on how to do the loaded variations properly with dumbbells and barbells, etc. And make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on those future videos. And until then, unleash your power, achieve your potential.